Would you ever want to go to the moon? What would you think about living your entire life in an automobile with withered, useless legs? Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and today I'm talking about Rocket Summer 2025, Origins of SF through the 1930s. This is the fantastic event in its second year, created by Michael K. Vaughan. There is a whole bunch of co-hosts along with me, and I will leave their name and description in the video. So what is vintage science fiction about? What is Rocket Summer all about? Well, it's all about reading those classic works of science fiction. And as I said, week one is dedicated to the origins of SF. Most people say that it's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Some people try to stretch it back a little bit further and going all the way to 1939. And in this week, I want to discuss the two books that I have read for this week. I actually have not read a whole lot. That was planned because this week I will be going on a jaunt after I recorded this video, and it's also my 29th wedding anniversary. So I'm not going to get a whole lot of reading done after recording this video. It will post later. So what are the two works of science fiction that I read? On an audiobook, I listened to The First Men in the Moon by H.G. Wells. This is a novel originally published in 1909. I have read many other works by H.G. Wells, including The Time Machine, The War of the Worlds, The Invisible Man, The Island of Dr. Monroe, and The Food of the Gods. As a novel, I think this one does not work as well as his great books, The Time Machine and War of the Worlds. It's not quite as good as The Doctor of Island Monroe, but you know, The First Men on the Moon is not terrible for what it is. The story is narrated by a Mr. Bedford. He is an English gentleman going through a bankruptcy. So he has taken a house out in the country and he plans to write a play because he has nothing else to do. But when he's trying to write his play, he is disturbed by a man who hums while he walks outside of his house. This man is a doctor. I don't think he's actually a doctor. He's just called Mr. Cavour. But he is a scientist. And they strike up a friendship, and Mr. Bedford learns that Mr. Cavour is rather the cliched, absent-minded professor, but he's onto something. He is creating a substance that's going to be called cavorite, which will make things opaque to gravity. That means you have a piece of cavorite and it will float away because it is immune to gravity. And they decide to create a sphere and go to the moon because why not? This is a brand new substance. Mr. Bedford sees many monetary opportunities with this device. Mr. Cavour does not see the monetary advantages of his new invention. But they go to the moon, and they discover that the moon is populated by this insect-like creatures called selenites. And from there, it is turning into an adventure story as Mr. Bedford and Mr. Cavour have to find their sphere, which has disappeared, and deal with these aliens called selenites. The main thing about this novel is H.G. Wells' creation of the selenites. The rest of the story, it's rather mundane, rather implausible, but his creation of these moon men, well, I guess I should not call them men because they're not men. They're not really insects either, but that's the best Mr. Bedford can do to create this alien species. And H.G. Wells really creates a species that's unlike anything human. You get to understand that H.G. Wells thought about life developing elsewhere. The one thing that Wells says is that all intelligent life would eventually grow to be bipedal with hands. I'm not sure he was correct with that, but it's good enough. And his bipedal insectoid selenites with hands, or sort of hands, are really truly alien. And that's what I liked about this book. It also has a very peculiar ending, an ending that a modern science fiction author I don't think could get away with. I won't spoil it. It's strange, but in its strangeness, I kind of liked it. Not his best book, as I said, but if you're a fan of vintage science fiction, you won't be too disappointed with The First Men in the Moon. On my Kindle, I read the short story, The Revolt of the Pedestrians by David E. Keller, MD, originally published in 1928. In this science fiction story, which on the Voxer group for this event, I called a cross between a masterpiece and a hot mess, because I can't decide if it's one or the other, or both. But the story starts off somewhere in the far future, where humans don't walk around anymore. When you're born, you're put into your own personal automobile, and everyone toodles around in their automobile, really liking the speed of being an automobilist. And these automobilists decide that pedestrians are the enemy. At first, pedestrians were just an annoyance, but as pedestrians decided to walk on the roads that the automobilists were driving on, they sometimes ran over the pedestrians, and eventually they created laws saying that an automobilist could drive over a pedestrian with no legal ramifications. And then it changed to the point that they said, if you're an automobilist and you see a pedestrian, you're supposed to run over that person, that pedestrian. And that's the first part of the story, where you're introduced to a driver running over a pedestrian mother, and there's a small boy who sees it, who shakes his fist and vows revenge. Skip forward 100 years or so, and there is a man named Heisler. He is one of the world's leaders. He is a very rich and influential man, and he has a new baby daughter. But his baby daughter does not take to the automobile the way babies are supposed to. And he shakes his head and says, let the girl be what she wants to be. She'll take to her automobile soon enough. But as she grows older, she does not take to the automobile. She actively likes it. And she does something absolutely forbidden in this world of automobilists. She walks on her legs. She does somersaults. She does cartwheels. He brings in the doctors of the age and say, what's wrong with my daughter? And the doctors say, we should do something to her legs so she can't use them anymore. And this man, Heisler, says, no, let my daughter be who she is, what she wants to be, even though it's wrong. Because Heisler is a rich and influential man, and he can cover up the fact that he has a daughter who uses her legs so shamefully in the eyes of the rest of society. In many ways, I think this story gives Mr. Heisler as the perfect father. Shouldn't all fathers encourage their children to be who they want to be and not be shamed by what they are, even if they are a little bit different? And this is a fabulous setup. I myself am really not fond of automobiles. I would rather have an automobilist society, but that's beside the fact. What David Keller is talking about in this story is people's addiction to technology. He's talking about automobiles in 1928. Everyone was going gaga over automobiles. And what would happen if that infatuation with automobiles became all persuasive, that we fell into this mire, this pit of relying and using technology way beyond the way we're supposed to? While this is, again, a story about automobiles, I could not help but wonder if I can turn this into a metaphor about our obsession with smartphones, the way we have becoming addicted to technology, to the internet. This technology is taking over. And while we're still at the early stages, are we going to become some other sort of being in the far future where some part of our body withers and becomes useless because we don't use it anymore? Because in this story, the automobilists, their legs, their withered, useless limbs, they're not supposed to be used. What would we lose in this hypothetical future if we turned ourselves over completely to the smartphone, to the internet, to technology? This is where the story really shines. There are lots of parallels in today's society. So how does this story end? I won't tell you exactly, but look at the title, Revolt of the Pedestrians, and you may get an inkling of what this story is about, because the automobilists believe they have extinguished all pedestrians everywhere, except for this Hessler's daughter. Maybe these automobilists are wrong. And there is one slight scene in this story. This is going to be a bit of a spoiler. Sorry, but it was a very powerful moment in my mind. There is a scene where these pedestrians are going to try to take over from the automobilists. And one of these pedestrians has to disguise himself as a female automobilist. And he goes around the automobilist society disguised as a female. Another female, an automobilist, falls in love with him, thinking that he is a her. He falls in love with her despite her withered limbs. At the end of the story, this pedestrian goes to this woman and says, "I am a man. I have legs. You are a woman. I love you anyway. I know that you fell in love with a woman, but could you love a man with legs?" And what this woman does, her reaction is rather shocking, but still rather amazing for 1928, because it depicts a woman falling in love with another, what she thinks is a woman, and what her reaction is. And that was really rather curious for that time. I really enjoyed it. So is Revolt of the Pedestrians a masterpiece or a hot mess? I do think it is both. It is also David E. Keller's first published short story, and first published short stories don't always highlight the author at his best. This author really does not have control of all of his material in this story, but I still liked it a lot. And that is the end of week 1 of Rocket Summer. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading vintage science fiction.